Busy time of year, but starting to slow down just enough to hang out with the family and do all the cooking for like 48 hours, and then
Are you
right
the
back
main
into the
cook in the
fire.
house?
I am the main cook, so
Yeah, so am I. I love it.
I
It's
love it
my
too.
it's my go-to place.
Yeah.
Because when I left school, I trained to be a chef
Oh wow.
briefly. Um, Another story. Okay,
Yeah.
let's rock and
Well,
roll.
that passion never leaves you. I think once you start, especially when someone enjoys and says, "Hey, I really like your food." I hear from my daughter's friends, or their parents. She loved your pasta or whatever it was. I'm like, okay, now I'm
It's the
ready for
best
more.
feeling, isn't it?
It is. It's
And
wonderful.
just that kind of inherent nurturing thing of just going into the kitchen empty-handed and coming out with a meal for people is really rewarding and uh, I love it. It's intoxicating. I absolutely love it.
Same
And
here.
because I travel so much, I don't always get a place with a kitchen, and that's why I always try and get an apartment when I'm filming because it just gives me a place to be in my head that isn't about work.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Um,
I can talk cooking forever, and but
but we shouldn't.
I know we're short on time, and I have a ton of questions, and I won't get to all of them. So let's
Okay,
just
let's
jump into
do
the
it.
series, and maybe we could pick it back up. But I'm sorry to interrupt, but I love the series. I love your character and your performance.
Thank
It's
you.
uh, it's a stellar, and there's so much to Izzy that we see on the surface, but there's so much more to him beneath. How was this character originally pitched to you, and what did you initially want to bring to him?
Um, the thing about this character was he wasn't in the pilot, so when I spoke to David about it there was nothing written. Um, so he explained it in very broad terms, but then I quite like specifics when I'm choosing projects, and he kind of he brought up Salieri from Amadeus, and I really hooked into that. Now I don't know whether we went that way with it in the end, but it was a really good hook for me because Salieri is that guy with a mission who is on the surface one thing but is underneath something
Mhm.
else. And I think initially Izzy was that, but then we exploded him in several other ways, and Salieri diminished to something else. But it was a good hook for me initially to get in by thinking about Salieri.
Yeah, I like it. I could see that for sure. And to start the season two, so going into that, he's a shadow of himself, from this
Yeah.
feared, intense, strong man to a broken man. And how was it like? What was it like taking this character and exposing that humanity and starting to peel away some of that shield?
Um, I mean, David had spoken to me before we started shooting and explained the most of the arc to me, and I'd always played Izzy as a man who was in love but didn't know he was in love. And for me, the key into this season was the design, but more importantly was the Tiger's performance. To see a man that I love to be that broken and to be that vicious because of the heartbreak was it was profound for me to to see what he did with Blackbeard, and it did break my heart a little bit. So the emotional journey was quite clear that at the end of the day, all hatred of Steed had left him, and all he wanted to do was fix Blackbeard. And he risks his life to do that. He literally puts himself on the line for that because, like always, and what I loved about what David and the writers did was they didn't remove Izzy from season one in season two. He's still there.
Mm.
And what Izzy does is about the crew. He puts his life on the line because Blackbeard is killing his crew. And he risks it all for that. But it breaks him seeing the man he loves so fragile and broken and angry. It breaks him. So it wasn't an easy job. It was quite a lonely job. It was quite a difficult job because it was going down that path that I knew inevitably we were going to go down. But I thought it was beautifully written. So
I
most of
agree.
what I needed to do was on the page, to be honest. I
And
just had
I'm sorry. What was
I
that?
just had to throw myself into it.
Excellent. And with Izzy being broken and literally broken, he loses his leg,
Yeah.
which is symbolic of much more. It leads to one of the most touching moments of the series, a note with 4 words for the new unicorn. What did that mean to you, and what does that mean to the character?
You know, I've been talking a lot the last couple of days because I'm allowed to now. And you know, this season is about Izzy coming out. It's in many ways he comes out, but that moment, that breath, that beautiful piece of writing, again, the writing, where the crew embrace him and it just releases him. It releases him from his own concept of who he is. It releases him from his own concept of who he has to be a first mate and a brilliant first mate. It releases him of the concept that he's alone. None of this would have been possible to Izzy pre-season 1. None of it. And in many ways, it's Steed that brings this into his life. Because before Steed, Izzy never thought of his relationship with Blackbeard as a loving relationship. He never thought of it as being in love. He only realizes he's in love with Blackbeard when he sees Blackbeard lose Steed. That's the reveal is he's heartbroken because the man he loves is broken. And he doesn't know what to do with any of that. He's not emotionally capable. And the crew giving him the leg and calling him the new unicorn and releasing him from all the stuff that he'd done, all that pain that he'd suffered and anger that he'd raged upon them. It's a really accepting moment. So yeah, I'm waffling a bit now, but it meant a lot, and
That's fine.
it was a very beautiful moment to play. And I thought Andy, who directed it. So Andy was a real shoulder for me to lean on in those scenes because a lot of those early scenes I'm shooting on my own, and it's quite difficult to play an emotional narrative when you're on your own because it tends to just be one tone. And he was wonderful, and Alyssa and Alex and all they were all wonderful in helping me gauge those moments, as were the rest of the cast. But yeah, that moment touched me enormously.
And you have this love triangle that is never really spoken, but it's there. And
Yeah,
then it kind of shifts. It's almost like a love square. It's Ed, Blackbeard, Izzy, and Steed, and where the love crosses, it's all, or the hatred is at sometimes, but then it evolves and
absolutely.
just it's just so complex.
I mean, we all in contemporary language we always associate love with romance, and that isn't the case here. The love that Blackbeard and Izzy have for each other is deep, man. It's deep and it's rooted in years of working together, loving each other, saving each other's lives, being constant. this is probably the only constant they've both had in their lives is Blackbeard is Izzy, Izzy is Blackbeard. And then to have this buffoon come in and steal Blackbeard's heart. It's not that Blackbeard falls in love with someone else. Blackbeard falls in love with this guy that Izzy just can't comprehend. And it's a constant. And then once, I think once Blackbeard hands him the gun, everything changes. When Blackbeard says, kill yourself, everything changes. And then there's an openness to Steed and Blackbeard. That brings him to that place of acceptance.
Yeah, it's great to
Yeah.
watch. Also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that I mean, I'll waffle again. I'll waffle a lot because that's what I do. But the more I think about that relationship, the more I go down all these different avenues of what it could have been and what it could never have been and what it is and what it wasn't. And it's, as you say, it's layered and complex. Um, and I'm honoured to have been able to get to play it with those actors, and especially with Taika, who's uh, a profoundly good actor. Everyone talks about Taika as director and writer. The man's a fucking great actor to work opposite, and he's exquisite. So yeah, I could only go where I went because of the writers and Taika. Really,
That's great. Of course, we have to touch upon the end of the season and the end of Izzy, unfortunately, which I'm hoping is not. I'm hoping this David has something up his sleeve. But what was your reaction when you learned it, and how emotional was shooting that final scene? Because that final scene says a lot between you
it
and
was.
Taika, or you.
I, I listen. I've been around a long time. The writing was on the wall when I started to read the scripts, and David had kind of hinted at it anyway. And when we went out for the famous dinner where he told me what the plan was, um, I was gutted because I love playing him so much. But yeah, narratively, yeah, it makes sense. And I have complete faith, respect, love, admiration for David Jenkins. And whatever he thinks or wants to happen in season 3 will be the right thing. If you get to season 3, which whether I'm involved in it or not, I really hope he gets it because he deserves it. The show deserves it. The show deserves its triangle. It deserves it. But yeah, it took a few days to sink in, and then I was fine. I was incredibly tired by that time, and I was lonely as really lonely because I was so far away from home filming all these scenes, and I tended to isolate when I was filming because of the nature of the work. So
Mm-hmm.
if I wasn't filming, I was sword training, or I was working out, or I was learning to walk on that fucking leg, or I was whatever. So I found myself isolating a lot, and in a way, it was a relief to be released from it. Um, the final scene, David had sent to me several weeks earlier, and I prepped as I always do, and I prepped, and we were going to shoot it at the beginning of the last week, and then it got shifted to the middle of the last week, and then it got shifted to the morning of the last day, and then it was shifted to the last thing we were going to shoot in the entire season. And there's always a dark cloud around those scenes because you never quite know how it's going to play, and there's a lot of pressure, and it being the last thing we were going to shoot put more pressure on. And we were on the ship, which is a huge set, hundreds of crew members, the cast, everyone who could possibly be there was there. And I was getting quite unsettled by the amount of cacophony of noise and people. And then we rigged it all up, and it was still just, and then suddenly it was just just me and Taika, and oh, just saying goodbye to a character we both fallen in love with, and it was a, I'm saying profound a lot, but it was a profound experience doing that scene because everything else disappeared. It was just me and him. It was just Izzy and Blackbeard, and um, it was a lovely, lovely moment.
Yeah,
It was
it
lovely
was
to be
painful
held by
but
another.
beautiful to watch.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's lovely to be held by another actor just creatively, and likewise with me to him, and David had a playlist playing, and it was elegant to do. It was nice to do. It was a nice fitting ending to that chapter of this character, and I'll always be grateful that they shot it in that way.
All right, I do have to
Yeah,
wrap. I just want to say before we do, I really enjoyed your rendition of Olivia and Rose. Fantastic.
thank you.
That's beautiful. And I appreciate all the work you did in the series. And I hope we see you again. And hopefully, maybe you'll have a cooking show too along the way because I'd love to see what you make in that kitchen.
Come on and let's bake together. Oh, I can't
Hey,
bake.
let's do
Sally
it.
will kill me. I'll cook. It's lovely,
Sounds
lovely
perfect.
talking to you, Stephen.
It's great talking to you as well. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.